Julia Dunaway, and I like to make plant-based food with no oil that tastes really good. So that's kind of what I'm known for. A lot of Asian dishes are my favorites because I'm half Japanese, but I also like to make any other kind of ethnic food that I love. And one of the things that came to mind recently was this dish that I called Chipotle at Home. And it's in my ebook called 50 Recipes in 50 Days. This came out in 2020. And Chipotle at Home was just my kind of version of Chipotle because we weren't going out to eat, remember, during COVID. And so I thought, well, I'll make something that reminds me of the Chipotle bowls I used to love. So I made a version then. But I've really kind of changed the way I do things lately, and I have a lot better recipes. So I thought I need to update that. So recently I did a quick kind of, Chipotle at home bowl one night. I just was messing around and I made a bowl with rice and beans and corn salsa and guacamole. Didn't have any of my tofu chorizo or much else in it. And I had a lot of really, interest in it, a lot of comments. A lot of people said, how did you make that? That looks so good. Could you make the tofu, or could you make the, sofritos that Chipotle has, and how did you make the beans? And everyone just asked and asked. So I thought, I need to just do a YouTube video and do the thing from start to finish so that you know all the components. You can pick and choose what you want in it, and you can make it simpler or more complicated. So I'm making the complicated version, and it started with the tofu chorizo, which is already in the oven. I did not want to do that all the way through because I've done it before on another YouTube video called Award-Winning Nachos. So I need to get a bowl over here. So if you want to know the whole story of how to make the tofu chorizo, all you have to do is look at the Award-Winning Nachos YouTube video, and I'll also put the recipe in the show notes. So I wanted to focus on some of the other things in my recipe. And so when people talk about going to Chipotle, they have this whole buffet of things. It's a lot of different things. But what's plant-based and what can we eat? Well, there's a lot, really. There's a lot of plant-based options. Black beans, pinto beans, fajita vegetables, corn salsa, different salsas, fresh tomato salsa, lettuce, but things like cheese and sour cream or dairy, so I could never eat those. And then also, when I adopted this plant-based no oil way of eating back seriously in May of 2020 is when I really said I'm going to do it 100% so I can lose my 30 pounds and keep it off, which I have by eating what I eat, which is whole food plant-based, no oil, and very few exceptions. So I stick to it really well. I eat lots of vegetables, fruits, beans, grains. I avoid vegan processed food, and it's really been great because I've kept my weight off, and that never happened before. So I don't want to go out and eat at restaurants that have super high sodium and lots of oil, because for me, that kind of thing will set me back, and I'll start, gradually gaining weight and feeling bad. My cholesterol might start creeping back up, my blood pressure. So, I kind of like to watch it. So I wanted to make my own version that was not so salty, because since I've been eating this kind of very reduced sodium, no oil food, lots of fresh food, not processed food, my taste buds have changed over the years. And I don't really like the taste of salty and greasy food. Imagine that. I used to love it. And now it's like when I eat it, I'm thinking, oh, this has too much salt. Oh, this is oily. It's leaving a bad taste in my mouth. And then the next day I don't feel very well. So for whatever reason, if you stick to this way of eating long enough, you start to prefer it over your old way. I know that in the beginning that sounded strange to me because I thought, nah, I'm never going to stop liking, this kind of food I used to like. And I used to miss cooking in oil. I really did in the beginning. I would think, this is stupid. Oil makes everything taste good. But then now it's like, I like the way it tastes without it a lot better. So truthfully, it really did change, but I didn't believe it would, but it did. So let's start with some of the components in the Chipotle bowl, and that's kind of what I'm going to make. Let's talk about beans. I intended to make my beans on the stovetop, but the pot I was cooking in this morning, the lid exploded. It was the weirdest thing. It all fell into the beans. So I have to call the company and see what they're going to do to replace it. So fortunately, I have an Instant Pot. So I quickly got a bag of my beans out, and I have Rancho Gordo beans. These are the black beans. I had Pinto Beans, but I used my last bag. I put a bag of Pinto Beans not soaked. You know, you just take your beans and put them on a tray and sort through and make sure there's no rocks in there or little, you know, dead looking beans, and then rinse them really well, and then put them in your Instant Pot with just about an inch of water. It doesn't really need a lot of water. The water's not going anywhere in the Instant Pot. And then I put a half of an onion chopped up and a couple of garlic cloves. And in the Instant Pot, it takes about 40 minutes. And then you naturally release it. So the cook time is 40 minutes. You can kind of see it. I don't have anyone here to take close-ups today. And then the big key to having really good tasting beans in the Instant Pot is once they're released, then put it on your saute setting and let it reduce the sauce in the beans for about 20 minutes. And then that makes it have this really nice thick sauce, and it gives the beans a better taste and texture. My personal opinion of a lot of beans cooked in the Instant Pot is they taste kind of chalky. It doesn't really develop their flavor, which is why I prefer to use the stovetop. But, you know, like in this case, I had to use the Instant Pot and it worked fine. But with black beans, I prefer cooking black beans in the Instant Pot because they come out better. They take too long on the stovetop. So I use a combination of Instant Pot or stovetop. So I'll have the recipe for the beans, but I have a whole video here on YouTube on how to cook beans, basic Rancho Gordo beans, and then I have another one, basic Rancho Gordo beans making Pinto Beans. So look for that one. They're both, you know, helpful videos. The other thing that comes with a Chipotle bowl, you can choose fajita vegetables, and we're going to make that right now. I'm going to turn my skillet on and get started making that. So at Chipotle, the fajita vegetables are made from bell peppers, onions, garlic, and some spices. But of course, they call them grilled, but they're fried, which I didn't know that. But they're just kind of, I guess they put them in maybe they have a grill, but I think they taste more like fried vegetables. Now, I could grill them, and you could look outside my window. I have a huge grill, but this is not grilling season yet. So I'm not going to grill anything. I'm just going to make, I'm not even going to make a lot of them. I'm going to make, you know, a small amount so it won't take so long. And I'm going to put them right here in my skillet. And I have 3 different kinds of bell peppers, and I have a half of an onion that's already peeled. I'm just going to slice it. I'm going to put everything kind of like sliced vegetables, okay? Nothing's going to be chopped, just kind of sliced. And this is just like half onions slices, okay? I'm going to throw that in here. See, the pan's already sizzling, so it's nice and hot. And then I'm going to take just a piece of each of these peppers, like maybe 2 sides. And this is a way that you can trim your peppers and not have to mess with the inside part. So I just kind of carve off the outside. I'm going to do that with the green, the orange. My knife needs to be sharpened. Man, it's not very sharp. I should have done that before this video. Okay, and then the red, I've already used some of the red bell pepper yesterday on my salad. And that's it. So I have my 3 types of peppers. And then this way they make strips really easily. I can just cut them into almost like matchstick strips. Now, if it were the summertime and I was out there grilling, and this would be a good thing to make grilling. So I'm just going to throw all these in here. The onion's not going anywhere. It's not overcooking. It's cooking up nicely. I would just cook the whole bell pepper, all the peppers and onions. I would just throw them on the grill and let them get roasted on the grill, and then I would cut them up. I wouldn't cut them up and then try to grill them. I have a lot of recipes for grilled vegetables. I have a grilled fajita vegetable dish in one of my classes. I don't think I have it on YouTube. I don't think I've done that one, but that's something I've made a lot. I need to do something on that. That was a really popular class that I taught. And I have a grilling class this summer. I'll probably do that in that grilling class, actually. my summer grilling class is going to be, you know, something where I kind of go through and show you how, you know, when the family comes over and everybody wants to grill, I have things I can grill too. You know, I can't always stop them from grilling what they want, which I don't, because, you know, you can't make everybody eat the way you do. Your family won't want to come over. So if they want to cook something that I don't eat, I cook my vegetables first. And that way, you know, I don't have to worry about them being cooked on meat, grill with meat. So, you know, I cook all my fajita vegetables. I'm cutting, if these look long, I'm cutting them in half, but the orange ones and the red ones weren't so long. Okay, so you can see this beautiful mixture of fajita vegetables. Okay, we're going to call them fajita vegetables, but they're really just kind of pan-seared vegetables. And this makes them a lot more accessible to you if you're making this on a weeknight. Let's say that you came home from work and you were craving Chipotle, but you weren't going to go to Chipotle and buy a bowl because you're really watching your fat and your sodium. And trust me when I tell you, their bowls have, I don't even know, one time I looked and it was like 1,000 calories for the bowl that I liked. And I don't even know how many milligrams of sodium, but it was way over what I would ever use. Okay, so we got the vegetables in there. We'll put a couple of cloves of garlic in there. That will give it some good flavor. So you could make this on a weeknight. You could come home and throw some peppers in a skillet. And you can have black beans or pinto beans already made, or canned beans are fine. So you can have your beans already prepared from another day, or this was how I used some leftover beans when I made it. I'm trying to kill this garlic. That was a stubborn one. So let's say you already had some beans, or you opened up some canned beans, and you just wanted something to go with it, some fresh vegetables. Well, then you take whatever peppers you have around. I usually always have bell peppers, different types, because I use them in my salad. So we just throw in our bell peppers and some onions and a little garlic, and then we can add some other seasonings, chili powder, paprika, cumin, just your typical, you know, kind of Tex-Mexy seasoning. So I've got some cumin over here. It really, you can be very liberal or not. Like, I don't want to put too much of anything. I put like a half a teaspoon of cumin, maybe a half a teaspoon of paprika, and a half a teaspoon of chili powder. Okay, so just a little, because the vegetables have good flavor by themselves. You don't have to add a lot of flavoring to things that have good flavor. Okay, and then this is my chili powder. I'm going to put half a teaspoon of chili powder. This chili powder is from the Santa Fe School of Cooking, and it's just the red, medium red chili powder. Their chili powders and all their spices are so good. I love to go there in person. I went there last summer. I plan to go again this year, later in the year, because everything they have is so good. Now, I haven't had to put any water in my pan, nothing. It's just garlic, vegetables, onions, and a few spices, smelling really good. Let's see if there's anything else. Salt and pepper. So my way of using salt is just a little pinch, because I'm trying to cut way back on salt, but I'm not quite ready to completely give it up. So my kind of interim way of dealing with salt is I've been using like almost none. But that, I don't know, somehow mentally that helps me feel like there's salt in there. So another thing you can do is you can put salt on things right when you get ready to eat them, just on the surface. I think that's a Dr. McDougall or Dr. Furman or one of the big plant-based doctors will say, you know, that way you get the feeling of the salt, but you're not getting a lot. But it's still kind of crunchy. So I'm going to add a little water, just a little, to make it steam a little bit. And turn the heat up. See how hot that pan is? Don't be afraid to make your pan hot. And that kind of creates a little sauce, and turning the heat up will char the vegetables just a little bit. And I think that gives them a flavor. It tastes really good. chili powder, cumin, and garlic and onion mixed with those vegetables makes for a really good flavor. We could add a little lime juice. We could do a lot of stuff to even boost the flavor of this, but right now it tastes pretty perfect. And I'm going to go ahead and put it in my serving dish. Yeah, they're starting to get a little brown just from searing it in the pan. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put these, so these are my fajita vegetables. And it always bothers me when I go to the Chipotle and I see the so-called grilled vegetables sitting there, and I just know they're covered with oil because they're shining and they're oily, and I think, I would like those, but no, I'm not going to have them. Okay, so far I have my beans, and then I have my vegetables. I'm going to set them now. I'll set them over here because I don't want to take up space that I need for something else. Those look so good. I'm so happy with those. And so easy. You saw me make them from scratch right here. Okay, so let's talk about the rice. Chipotle has good rice. So what do they do to have good rice? They start with, well, when they make it right, it's good. I should say that the last couple times I went to Chipotle, they opened up a new one by my house in the next town over. So I went there all excited. Oh, there's a Chipotle here. This was a few years ago when I still ate it. And I got a burrito bowl, bit into it, and the rice was raw. It wasn't just undercooked, it was hard. I couldn't believe it. So I took it back and I said, the rice is raw. And the lady said, oh, well, I'm sorry. And I said, I don't want this. You know, I want a refund. This is inedible. And then I wrote the management and told them, well, they gave me coupons for more Chipotle. I thought, oh, I don't want to go back there. So I went about a month later, because it had just opened. I thought, oh, it's you know, they're having problems. So I went back about a month later. This time, the rice was raw and the beans were hard. I don't know how that happened, but it was terrible. And the other thing they do is sometimes they'll put like real runny liquid vegetables and stuff in their bowls, and so everything is real wet and runny. Ugh, I don't like it like that. Okay, so we're gonna make it taste so much better. I have my brown rice. This was frozen brown rice, so I just heated it in the microwave. I'm trying to make this simple for you. So, you know, cilantro lime rice. Is there even a recipe for it? Well, yes, in my 50 recipes in 50 days, I had the recipe for cilantro rice. And I just had squeezed lime and chopped up cilantro in it. So how simple is that? There's really not a recipe to it. So we're just going to put some lime and cilantro in it. I'm not going to put salt and pepper in it because it doesn't really need it. So just a little fresh lime and some cilantro. Could we put, you know, garlic and other things in? Yes, but we really don't need to, because look at how we have all this the other things are seasoned, like the vegetables we're going to use have a lot of different seasonings in them. So just a lime and a little cilantro. Let me see if I have any other notes on that. No, I think that was it. Here's my cilantro. I washed my cilantro earlier and dried it in the salad spinner. So if you have herbs like parsley and cilantro and they're wet, they're going to get rotten fast. So always wash them really well, dry them by putting them through your salad spinner, which will get all the wetness off of them. And then I even put them, you know, like blot them with paper towels too. I'm just chopping the cilantro up really nice so it's kind of fine. I don't want gigantic pieces of cilantro in my rice. And then I'm just going to stick this in this bowl of rice. So here we go. We have cilantro lime rice, okay? Simple. Get the frozen brown rice, heat it according to the directions, and then you have your rice. Couldn't get much simpler than that. Okay, let's make our corn salsa. One of the things I liked about the food at Chipotle was the corn salsa. And I always thought that was delicious. And so, you know, I figured out there was not much to it. Okay, it's not really a salsa. It's more like roasted corn. And I guess you could put, you could roast the corn on your grill in the summertime and then cut it off the cob then it would be really roasted corn salsa. But we're talking about how to make this when, you know, it's not your whole day. Like if you were having company over and having a big grill party, great. But this is just like you want to cook some food and you get out the frozen corn out of the bag in the freezer. And then the way I make the corn ready for my recipe is I put the corn, this was 1.5 cups of corn in a bowl, cover it with boiling water and let it sit for 5 minutes and then drain it. The corn is then perfect. It's not frozen anymore, but it's not mushy, because if you were to microwave the corn with water, what I used to find is the corn would then get real weird texture and it wouldn't be good. Okay, I want to show you what I'm doing. I'm cutting up a poblano pepper and I'm putting that in there, just a small piece. The poblano pepper, I grilled it earlier, looked like this. Could have used a bell pepper too. I cut it in half and put it on my air fryer tray along with my jalapenos. So I have 2 air fried jalapeno peppers, and I'm going to use these as one of my toppings because I love those kind of grilled jalapeno peppers. And I found that the air fryer, you can grill vegetables by putting them on your air fryer tray, but don't make them too tall because the air fryer's kind of got a short, low ceiling. Put it on 350 for about 15 minutes. And whatever you put in there will be like a grilled vegetable. And it works so good with these peppers. So I made a pepper earlier so I would have a poblano to use in my corn salsa. And that's what it looked like when it was raw. When it was cooked, it was a lot smaller. And then we can put some red onion, some chopped up red onion. I don't have a red onion available, so I'll have to actually cut up an onion a little bit. And I'm not going to use a whole onion. I'm going to use 1/4 of a cup. That's not very much red onion. I love red onion. And this corn salsa, or whatever you want to call it, it makes this bowl taste so good. And that was one of the things that Chipotle also messed up for me. I shouldn't trash them so much, but I had some really bad experiences. So I would get my nice bowl. It would have beans and rice, and it might have, sofritos or whatever in it. And then I would ask for this salsa. And for whatever reason, oftentimes their salsa would be very, very wet. And they would spoon it on there, but they would spoon a lot of it on there, like too much. So then everything is all soupy. So I did not like a soupy bowl of whatever was in there. That was not my, not my taste preference, to have something that was real soupy. I'll use a fork to mix this one up. So I have the red onion. So we don't have to make it really wet. We can make it however we want it. It has a little cilantro and some jalapeno pepper. Okay, so I'm going to put, I've got some washed up jalapeno peppers here. I'm just going to put like 1/2 of one because I don't want it to be too spicy. So I like to cut around the edges of the jalapeno like I did, how I cut around the bell peppers. That way you leave the membranes and the seeds inside, and you just have a real easy thing that you can cut. So that's what I'm doing. Now, if you don't want raw hot peppers in your salsa, just omit this. I live in Texas, so we eat spicy stuff. So I love minced jalapeno peppers and stuff. It doesn't bother me. Oh, the other option you have is, remember the grilled jalapeno peppers. That seems to make them less, hard to eat, less whatever you want to call spicy, I guess. When they're roasted, that mellows them out a little bit. Not completely, but it does mellow them out a little bit. Now look, isn't that looking pretty? Okay, so cilantro. How much cilantro? 1/4 of a cup. So good thing I've already got my cilantro washed and ready to go. I'll cut it up real small. So we've got our tofu chorizo. We've got our beans already made. We have our cilantro lime rice. We're almost done. Oh, speaking of, there's our tofu chorizo. Let's get this in the bowl. All we have left is lime juice for that. Oh, that smells wonderful and looks beautiful too. And if you don't like cilantro, I know there's cilantro haters everywhere. I like it, but not everybody does. Okay, here's the tofu chorizo. Now, look how delicious that looks. That has the tofu with the different seasonings, chili pepper. It's got some red onions in here. It's got a little bit of chili powder, and I'm just going to mix it up, and I'm going to put it back in for about 5 more minutes so that it's brown all the way around. I think that will make it better. It smells wonderful, and you will get the recipe for that. Okay, so 5 more minutes, and then we need to put some lime juice in our corn salsa. And these limes are pretty juicy, so I haven't had to use my lime squeezer yet. I'm going to put the juice of half a lime in here instead of the juice of 1 lime, because sometimes you can put too much lime and stuff, and I can put more lime later. Okay, so that's done. We don't need to add salt and pepper. That's not an essential ingredient in every food. That was kind of something that I think all recipes have salt and pepper to taste. I'm just cleaning my bowl a little bit. But it's not necessary because the flavor comes from the citrus and the onions. We don't have to have the taste of salt in there. We can, but we don't have to. All right, so what else do we have in our bowl? We have sour cream. And I've already made that. And the sour cream I've made is made from cashews. And you'll have that recipe. It's just basically soaked cashews, blitzed in the blender with a little bit of lemon juice and a little garlic pepper. So that turned out really good. And you can make that. Okay, another thing is romaine lettuce. So sometimes, you can put whatever you want in your bowl. It doesn't have to have lettuce in there. It can have just beans and rice. Some of these romaine lettuce leaves have little brown spots. So I'm going to make a small bowl of romaine lettuce that we can have as an option to put in our bowl, because that's what I always do. I'm making a bowl like the way I like it, which has romaine lettuce, and then it also has the rice and the beans and the other things too. And that's what they have. They have this option that you can get the romaine lettuce. So I'm going to put some of that in my bowl here. I'm not going to chop all of it up. It would take too long. So, you don't have to do this if you can just do a beans and rice bowl, but I'm always trying to get lots of greens in my meals every day because I follow the Daily Dozen with Dr. Michael Greger and the whole How Not to Die and eating certain foods every day, and I kind of keep my own little checklist in my head. And also Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, who talks about how to make yourself heart attack proof, and one of the things he says is eat greens several times a day. Okay, there's my romaine lettuce. We're getting near the end. Believe me, we really are. I need to make my guacamole, and then I might make some quick pico de gallo. I think I have the time to do that. So let's make the guacamole. So guacamole is something, we'll also make the chipotle vinaigrette. I'm only going to use 1 avocado because there's not a lot. I'm the only one who's going to be eating this tonight, and I don't want to make a bunch of guacamole and have it go bad because that's not a good idea. So I'm just going to make a small amount of the guacamole, and that way it won't go to waste. And it'll be a lot quicker. Okay, so I have a really good, really big avocado. Let me put this lettuce out of the way. And guacamole can be as simple as avocado with lime and fresh garlic, or garlic powder even, if you don't want to use fresh garlic. I've made some really good guacamole with nothing but lime juice or even lemon juice. Like the other day I didn't have any lime, so I used lemon juice. And it tasted fine. You know, you don't have to have, it's a citrus taste, okay? So I'm just kind of scooping. I should have a spoon, but I don't have a spoon handy, so I'm using the fork. It works fine. I'm scooping the avocado, and I'm going to be pressing it with a fork anyway. This is like a perfect avocado. It's not too ripe. It's not unripe. And if you get the perfect avocado, you know, what you do is, first of all, don't buy ripe avocados. Buy avocados that need a couple days. Leave them out. And as soon as they get just the perfect ripeness, put them in your refrigerator. They won't keep getting riper. And the perfect place to have your avocado is when you press on it and it yields a little bit. Not a lot, just a tiny bit. Okay, so I've got my avocado in here. Okay, there we go. Now our tofu chorizo is done. Looks great. So now it looks the same color all around. So this is the way I like it. I know some people ask me, they say, oh, I want a recipe for the sofritos from Chipotle. Well, quite frankly, I don't like the sofritos flavor, and I investigated how they make them, and they have a lot of Chipotle and adobo sauce and red wine vinegar. So to me, it's kind of a bitter taste that I don't really like. So I prefer my tofu chorizo, which doesn't have that flavor in it. I like the flavors of it better, and that's why I'm going to use that, because it's something I like. Okay, so I'm going to mash my avocado. I don't remember what I was saying, but you know, really, I don't like to mash the avocado too much. I like it to be chunky, because if you over mash the avocado, it kind of gets slimy, I guess. I don't know what to call it, but it's better to leave it a little chunky. Okay, so if I were making this guacamole for my husband, all I could put in it is lime juice and salt and garlic. That's all, because he does not like anything else. He would not like it at all if I put the other things, but since he's not going to be eating it, he won't eat it tonight, I'm going to put garlic in it for one. Garlic makes it taste really good, so you have to put garlic in your guacamole. But short of garlic and lime juice and salt really makes it taste good, but if you're on a no salt plan, you don't have to put salt in it. People say that lime kind of helps give you a salty taste, things that you normally would put salt in. I don't know about that. Get this green thing out of my garlic. So, you know, but I know there are people that watch me that don't use any salt, so I always like to try to address the fact that you don't have to use salt and it'll still taste good. So I want to chop up this garlic so fine that I even like to turn it into a paste. It tastes so much better if I can kind of mash it down and make it even less chunky than it is. So turning it into a paste takes a long time. I'm not going to do that, but let's say you wanted it to kind of melt into your guacamole. If you just rub the flat end of your knife or the flat side of your knife over it enough times, your garlic will kind of disintegrate. I'm not going to do that today, but that's how you do it. All right, so a couple garlic cloves. I'm not going to keep mixing it up. I'm not going to mix it up till everything's in it. Now, one way that I like my guacamole is I like to put a little cilantro in it. But again, if this were my husband, he would say, oh, no cilantro. And then the other thing I've seen at restaurants, here I have red onion, is a little red onion, which I think is good. Not a lot. Don't want to get too crazy, but some finely chopped red onion, I think tastes good in there. So those are the things I'm going to put in: lime juice, red onion, garlic, a little bit of cilantro. So this will be my today's guacamole. But remember, the only thing you have to put in guacamole to make it good is lime juice and garlic. A little bit if you don't like a lot of garlic. So salt, little kosher salt. Remember, I'm doing pinches and not overdoing it. I will put a little pepper in here. And that's it. It's got the lime juice. It's got the, you know, it's been mashed, but not over mashed. Remember what I said, don't over mash your avocados because they'll get slimy. So chunky is better. So I like my guacamole just like this, not over processed. And some restaurants, to me, they tend to mash it to death and then it doesn't taste very good. So I want to taste this and tell you if it's any good. Perfect. And even without a bunch of salt, it tastes so good. Okay, so let's kind of, let me make my last thing. I know this is a long video, but we made a lot of things. So we have to, it takes time to make a lot of things. Sorry. Okay. One last thing that I can make is I can make a fresh salsa, like a pico de gallo. And all pico de gallo is, and they call it fresh tomato salsa, but I call it pico de gallo. And I'll make a small batch so that it doesn't take too long. But anybody can make this anytime. I'm looking for another bowl. I'll just use this one. And really all it is you just take some tomatoes, and I'm going to cut around the tomato so that I don't get the seed part and I won't get the stem part. And I'm just going to cut it. This is a Roma tomato, and Roma tomatoes make really good fresh tomato salsa because they don't have a lot of seeds in them, especially when you cut around the seed, cut around the inside part. And then I'm just going to rough cut it into pieces. Then, you know, I'm just chopping it. I cut it into strips, rotate it, cut those into little cubes. And this is just 2 tomatoes. Normally you would make it with 5 or 6 tomatoes, but like I said, I'm just doing it really quickly. But this also shows you that you could just, you know, make this fresh tomato salsa because if you're making Chipotle at home and you've already got all these things out, you've got onions and cilantro and lime juice and, you know, jalapenos and whatnot. You've already got all those things out. Well, then it's real easy to make this because that's all this is. The Pico de Gallo song from the Trout Fishing in America. My kids used to play this group called Trout Fishing in America, and they had a song called Pico de Gallo. And it went through the ingredients of how to make it. And it said, you start with some tomato, add a little cilantro, a little onion, a little jalapeno, a little lime juice. And I had memorized that song from the kids singing it all the time. So I have the Pico de Gallo recipe memorized from when my kids were little singing that song. So it has a little tomato, a little onion, a little cilantro, a little jalapeno. And like I said, this is a tiny batch. So I'll give you the instructions for a normal size batch, but this is like the mini version. And then we already had some jalapeno from earlier, so I'll cut the outside off. So I want you to see that cooking doesn't have to be, you know, we have to know exact specifications for every dish. Look at what you have out. I have all these things already out, so it's like, I can make the fresh tomato salsa. I don't have to use jarred salsa. This would be easy to make. I already have limes out. I have all these jalapenos, tomatoes, onions, everything I needed to make homemade pico de gallo that fast. Just a little lime juice. This lime was a little drier than the others. So there you go. That's that simple, is fresh tomato salsa. All it is tomatoes, onions, cilantro, jalapenos, and lime juice. And then we could, like everything else, if we wanted to, we could add a little pinch of salt. Then we could add a little fresh ground pepper. It doesn't have to have garlic. So that's it. So I'm going to show you what I have so far, and then we will regroup and assemble a bowl. So sorry about that. What we have is we have the the tofu chorizo, the fresh tomato salsa, the corn salsa, cilantro lime rice, romaine lettuce. We have the grilled vegetables. We have the pinto beans that I cooked earlier, the sour cream, and the guacamole. Okay, so this is like my buffet of Chipotle. This is my little Chipotle restaurant, right? I can, you know, people could stand in line and I could say, what do you want? You know, and rush them through. You want this? You want that? You want this? You want that? And then for salsa, I have other options. Like if my husband were eating this, I have some of his favorite red salsa and green salsa. Now I'm not going to use that because I have the corn salsa. But I could put that there. Oh, and then my roasted jalapenos. So I'm going to clean up my mess a little bit, set up my buffet, regroup, and we'll create a bowl. It's going to be so good. Okay, let's make a bowl. I'm hot. The kitchen has got hot all of a sudden, so if my face is glowing, it's because the oven was going on. Okay, so we can do this any way we want. I have a nice wooden bowl, kind of big. I'm going to start with some lettuce because remember I told you I have to have my greens, so that gives me some fiber. And then I like to do rice next, so I'm going to put the equivalent of about half a cup of rice in here. And then beans, about half a cup of pinto beans. I'm going to nestle them in sort of the center. Then remember our really good grilled fajita vegetables? Yum. We'll put some on top. They turned out so nice. They're perfectly cooked. They're so colorful. And they're not oily. Yay. Okay, then we've got our tofu chorizo. I'll put it on top. Not too much. Now I have all these other options. I have my corn salsa, which I love. I'm just going to put it right on top. I have my fresh tomato salsa. Remember the pico de gallo? I'll put that on the side so you can see it. I have these beautiful, I didn't show you once I cut them up, but my roasted jalapeno peppers, they turned out so good. A couple of those, just a little bit on the side. And then, what about my beautiful guacamole?